Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. We're back with Frank.
And where we occasionally keep you on your seat for a couple of weeks.
You best believe it.
Coffiners, I can only tell you how frustrated I have been for the last couple of weeks trying to get this. We got this new internet in our home, and for some reason, my computer was the only one that would not connect to it. And I couldn't get it figured out. It was refusing. And so what happened? I reached out to a coffiner.
That's right.
And he was kind enough to let me lead me through some different steps that I might be able to take. And my gosh, sure enough, he was right. So here we are. What were you saying, Holly?
I was saying, I think it's funny because I think the last podcast that we did was when we said we were going to be more consistent. And then it's a 2-week gap.
You know, I talked to my brother today too, and he said, "Are you not doing the podcast anymore?" Oh, geez, Fred. Well, I mean, okay, well, there have been some issues, mainly on my part. So anyway, that is nice. It's nice to be back with you again.
Yeah,
Holly,
it's nice to be
back. And
back.
also all the other coffiners. So thank you. Sorry for the small little recess, but knock on wood, that will be our last little hiccup is what I'm hoping. Anyway, yeah.
We'll see.
You know, coffiners, I have to tell you, and Holly laughed about it a little bit. I just think that some of these stories that we've been telling, that the people have been rising from the dead and just saying, "Hey, no more stories. We're done." Okay.
Stop talking about us.
We're done. No, ain't happening no more, and I'll show you how it's going to work.
Exactly.
So if the podcast goes out in the middle of it, well, you'll know what my theories are.
You know why.
Yeah, you'll know why.
You know why.
That's right. So how's your week been, Holly?
It's been good. I have a lot of things that I could share.
Work-related or just personal?
No, just personal.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of things with the cats. Do you want a cat story? We get an option now because every time something kind of notable happens, I think I can use that for the podcast. Well, so let me just give you the highlights. Number 1, Kate and I have started swimming at the rec center.
Nice.
That is very fun.
Good. How often do you go?
We're trying to go 3 to 4 times a week.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we went yesterday. That was really fun. And we've been going a lot, which has been fantastic. And I guess that's it.
How's your garden doing?
The garden's great. We had our first pick. And we picked a radish yesterday, and it was so good.
Did you share it with your landlord?
No, not yet, because that was just the first one. And it was a pretty small one, so I was thinking that it was going to be super spicy like they usually are, but it really wasn't. It was very odd. In a nice way. Yeah. It was good. It was almost sweet. So I was happy about that.
Good.
And other than that, maybe it gave me a slight heart attack the other night.
Yeah, what happened?
Let me tell you what happened. So Caden went on a retreat this past week with his work.
Oh.
And so in that retreat, he stayed overnight at Park City. So I was home alone at night, and I thought, okay, well, usually the cats aren't allowed into our room at night, but because I'm alone, I'm going to let him in. First of all, they gave me no comfort. Nelson was outside the entire night and
playing the tomboy. That's okay.
Playing the tomboy.
Yeah.
And maybe she has this habit of catching things and bringing them inside.
What, the vacuous look cat?
Yes. Yes, we're surprised too. We honestly didn't think she had it in her. So this is about 1:00 in the nighttime.
Yeah.
No, I think it was 2. It was 2:00 at night. I wake up because I'm hearing cat noises. And I'm like, okay, but they're not normal cat noises. Where I can tell that she's brought something in.
Okay.
And she's like swatting at the wall. And so I'm just listening to this for a while. And kind of to my disbelief, because I'm like, how dare her? First of all, bring something into the house that now I'm going to have to wake up out of bed to go get. It was just awful too, because Kaden wasn't there. So I was going to have to deal with this. And she brings things inside, but she's not good at killing them. So I turn on the lights eventually because I'm freaking out because my light is right next to my head. So I'm thinking, if this is a big moth, it's going to come for me if I turn on the light. Well, I turned on all the lights. So I go in the corner and maybe has brought in, you know, those massive moths that are like furry. They're furry and they're this big around and they're awful. She brought in one of those into my room that I left open as a courtesy to her for that night. She was showing her appreciation by bringing me this massive moth.
I think so.
That
What
now
she was.
I have to deal with.
I think so. What she's saying is that I know Nelson's not going to be around, so you're expecting two things in the room. Let me bring this in.
Let me bring in my friend. But turns out it was not her friend because she had ripped off one of its wings. And so it couldn't really fly. So it's like running around trying to get away from her. And she's just having the most fun in the world. And I'm outside the room at this point because I don't want to be close to it.
Yeah.
So I'm outside the room and she comes over to me, just waltzes over like no big deal. And she's like trying to rub up against my legs like, hi, how are you doing? I'm like, absolutely not. Go back in there and kill it.
Did she?
She went back in. I think I was screaming at this point. I wasn't screaming, but I was like, maybe. No, go get it. And so she got the picture. She went back into the room and she swatted it a couple times. And eventually it died. And I know it died because as soon as it dies, they have no use for it. And she just like walks around and she can't even find it anymore. So she literally walked on it and couldn't find it.
Maybe it didn't die, and maybe you're just you have a moth somewhere decomposing in the carpet somewhere.
No, because it died on the rug, and I was thinking, how in the heck am I supposed to sleep after this with this thing in my room? So I had to get out the vacuum, which of course is maybe's least favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
And so I got out the vacuum. And I sucked it up, which is awful because it made that big clunk noise when the moth goes into it. Oh my gosh. It was the most traumatic night. Kaden wasn't there to make matters worse. And then I felt bad because I was thinking probably thought she was being so sweet and brought me this present. And I just scared her out of the house with the vacuum at 2 a.m.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. So it was just a whole ordeal and I hated every minute of it.
But she came back in, right?
She came back in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. At least she wasn't hit by. Yeah, she wasn't hit by a car or anything, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, they're kind of funny. They never leave the yard.
Really?
Yeah, they always stay in the yard. Even at our old house, they always stayed in the yard.
Huh.
Which is nice.
Yeah, that just means they know where to get fed, and they don't want to lose the house.
Yeah. So that was good, but that's all I got.
Well, that's enough, Holly.
Well, it's enough. How was your week?
Frustrating. Only because of this, because of the episodes.
Yeah, because of the internet.
Yeah, and so I couldn't. Anyway, that's another story. But RH, you know who you are. Thank you very much. Double thumbs up to you. So thank you very much for that. But no, been kind of steady. Lisa's been out of town, or fictitious one has been out of town because of the upcoming baby birth.
Yes.
And so this morning at 4 a.m., Holly, you have a new
nephew.
A new nephew. I have a new grandchild or new grandson. And so that's exciting news. Still no name. But very exciting and excited to have Lisa there. So she was there a week before the baby was born, which was probably not planned. But I think she's going to
No.
extend. I think she's going to extend another week so that she can spend some additional time with the baby and our daughter and her husband and help with the other 4 kids. So
Yeah.
it'll be good. Yeah.
That'll be really good.
Yeah. She's right where she needs to be.
He's
So
a
that's
cute
it.
little
That's
guy.
really, yeah, it's been, and it's funny because Confiders, you need to know that my daughter was not, this baby was not in a hurry to be born.
Oh my gosh. What was she? 12 days late?
Something like that. I don't know.
Oh my
But
gosh.
but was not. And then the picture they sent us was the same picture probably he was taking in the womb.
Yeah, probably.
Nice and comfortable, eyes
Just
closed,
comfy,
arms crossed. He's just
sleeping.
just as comfortable as can be.
Yep.
Yeah, good for you. That's what I say. Good for
All
you.
right. Yeah.
So it's good. No, it's that's about it. That's about all of our. It's about all of my exciting week so far.
That's the excitement.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we will press on then. And are you ready to be frank?
I'm ready.
We haven't gotten to be in a couple weeks, so let's jump in.
Okay, so today's story, I have to give you a little bit of a background on it, and it's another embalming story and some of the interesting particulars that took place within this story itself and what was taking place. So this one particular company that I was working for had 4 or 5 facilities in the area, and I was asked to specifically go over and embalm this one particular young lady. And so I went to the facility, and as I first went into the facility, and mind you, I was working my other job at managing another funeral home, and so as I walked into this facility, it was after hours, of course, and as I walked in, I just noticed that, hey, well, why are the lights all still on? Because you want to take care of expenses.
Right.
And so if the building is closed, let me turn the lights on as I come in and walk through the building. Don't leave them all on for me. And so that's the impression I was having when I walked into the building and saw all the lights on. I thought, well, geez, what if I came later? That's burning of the electricity even that much longer. So we've had stories about this in the past about other individuals that this one particular funeral home where I was doing some trade embalming at, which is now closed, but where lights were issues. But the lights weren't the issue here, not that I could tell from the beginning. Okay. So I made my way through the facility, and I turning off lights as I was going, and I walked into the prep room, and there they had taken the individual out of the cooler and placed her on the table for me, which I was grateful for. And then I just gowned up, started to embalm, and nothing major happened during the course of the embalming. And as I was finishing up the embalm, I started to hear little noises in the background, and not necessarily loud chitter chatter but just something that you would not normally hear. It was out of the ordinary. The noise was, it wasn't like rustling of trees on a window or a wall. But it was definitely very clear as to the noise that was actually being made. It was almost, and it wasn't, but it sounded almost like someone walking through water.
Oh, okay.
If you can imagine that. Yeah. So, but it was not water, but that's the sound that it kind of made. And I kind of likened it to Jell-O. So if someone had spilled Jell-O on the ground, and you could put your hand on it or your foot on it, and you could hear that slight squish sound.
Yeah.
That's the sound that I was hearing.
Oh, gross.
So as I finished up doing the embalming, and after sewing up this young lady, I started looking around the prep room trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find it. There was nothing on the floor, nothing on the walls, nothing that would cause me any reason to look any further than what I had already seen in the room to cause the noise. So sure. I went to the sink, and I started to wash my hands. And interesting thing in this prep room, there's a curtain that is along the one one far wall where I was washing my hands.
Yeah.
And the problem with that curtain and with curtains anywhere in the prep room is that chances are you might get splashed, right? So a
You might get
splash from the
splashed. Oh,
yeah
on the
from
curtain.
from the prep room, from the course of the embalming itself, there might be some splashing that occurs, and so it ruins the curtain. So I've never really understood. I could never really understand up until that point why there would be a curtain there.
Sure.
And so behind the curtain is what, Ollie? A mirror. Yeah,
A mirror.
a mirror. And so the mirror was positioned directly above the sink, but you wouldn't know the mirror was there unless you knew it was there and you just parted the
The
curtains
curtain.
and just make sure your hair was, make sure there's no spatter on
Make sure
you.
you look nice.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so I was doing that, looking in the mirror. When have you ever had that opportunity? Well, that occasion where you would be looking at something and all of a sudden part of your eye blurs
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that
you just
happens to
stop
me.
and you start blinking really fast, trying to get water to it or moisture to it, thinking that your eyes just dry, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing as I'm primping my hair, just kind of going over my face, making sure that there's nothing on my face. And I'm looking in the mirror, and all of a sudden I see this blur up in the right hand corner, kind of to the right of my face. And I'm thinking, hold it, is that my eye? And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at my vision, and I'm starting to blink really fast, thinking, okay, I can stop here for just a minute, and I fix my eye because I don't like those blurry spots. I just don't like them.
I hate those. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know everyone has experienced them before. Coffiners, I know you're probably shaking your head. Yeah, I know exactly what
Don't
you're
lie to
talking
us,
about. Yeah.
cautioners.
So anyway, so I'm trying to clear my eye, and finally I just thought to myself, well, it's not going away, because every time I looked at the mirror, I could see that blur,
Did you rub your
and
eye?
I was rubbing my eye and
Oh, see, that
both
always gets it
eyes.
go away from me.
No, well, so I just went on ahead and I closed the curtain. I just let the curtain drop, and I just thought, okay, that's it, I'm done. So I got to go home. It's getting late. So I turned off the lights. But as I turned off the lights, there was a light in the room, in the
What?
prep room. There was a light in the prep room.
A light
It
on
wasn't
still, like an overhead light, or just a light
a
coming from
light,
someplace?
just a light. And it
Yeah.
caught my eye and my attention. So I turned back around into the prep room and I started to walk towards the light. Oh, jeez.
Uh-oh. Not in the prep room. Not after you're primped and ready to go.
Oh my gosh, that's funny, right? Okay, I didn't mean to say it like that, but that was funny. So I walked towards light, and interesting thing for me is I always try and find out where the light source is coming from because I knew that it was dark outside. So, and I had turned off the lights, and so I'm just trying to look around, saying, "Where's this bolt of light coming from?" Now
Yeah.
there was no stream, there was no banner of light leading to this orb. I'll call it an orb that I was looking at. But I could definitely see the light, and it seemed to be floating just in the air.
Yeah.
And so I walked up to it, and I just kind of pushed my hand around it. Nothing. I could not see anything reflecting on my hand. I pushed my hand through what I thought was the orb, but I could never touch the orb. So
Mm.
I could never. I got close, but I could not get anywhere closer to it to actually touch the orb to see if it was in fact
Did the
something
light
that was.
touch your hand? Like, did it go onto your hand?
No,
Okay, so
no. It just
it
stayed remained.
evaded you.
Yeah, it just kind of stayed, but I didn't see it move.
Yeah.
So if it was moving extremely fast to where my eyes couldn't pick up on it. So I walked back over to this the light switch and I turned the light on, and of course the orb was gone. I couldn't
Yeah.
see it anymore. So then I went back to the mirror, thinking now, oh, I wonder if the blur is the orb. So I
Oh.
turned off the light, exposed the mirror, and I could see the orb through the mirror, but it was the blur. And I thought, oh,
Oh, so
okay,
it
that's it.
is.
Yes. And so I turned around and with the lights off, and I could still see that orb there. And so I thought, okay, well, that's what it is. So I went on ahead, turned back on the lights, and then walked back over. And I did something kind of weird. I grabbed a small little veil thing that they use to cover or to drape the caskets if the person has a lot of facial damage or head
Oh,
damage,
yeah.
so that you can still see the individual, but you can't make out the particulars of the person's face.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of helps curb wind. So anyway, I grabbed that veil and I just started swishing it through the air. And I kept thinking to myself, come on, if you're here, I'm going to make contact with you one way or the other. You can't be that fast. Right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So I continued on, and I could not see it. The lights were now off and I could not see it anymore. So, okay, good. So it's gone. That's great. So I went right through that doorway, went right back towards the open entryway to
Mm-hmm.
get in there. And I usually will take something that allows me to listen to either soft music, talk radio, whatever the case might be, just to kind of break the monotony. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons why I do that now more so than ever, because then I don't focus on additional sounds, if that makes sense. And so I'm more focused on what it is I'm listening to as opposed to what I could be listening to without that
Right.
help with a cell phone or whatever the case might be at the time. So I had forgotten the cell phone. So I walked back in. I said, oh man, I got to go back. So I went back in, opened the door, and there was not only an orb, but a figure.
Oh, gosh.
So the figure now,
Was it lit up?
the orb was actually over the person's face.
Oh.
So I couldn't make out the facial expressions of the individual that I had just been talking about or trying to maneuver to. And I just, in all, I think enough things had happened to me at this point that I was trying everything I could to communicate with this thing.
Yeah.
And so I went and I turned off the light and I exposed the mirror because that's where I initially saw it. I could no longer see the blur, but I saw the image. I saw the person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through the mirror. And I turned around as though I could still see the person, and the person I couldn't see any longer. So I looked back to the mirror, and she was still visible in the mirror.
Oh, so it was a woman.
It was a woman. And I went back to the mirror again and just started looking at it. And she just kind of took her hand. I think it was her left hand, and she just kind of bade me
Come to the light.
to come to her. But as I turned around, I couldn't see her. So I was doing all of my maneuvering through the mirror.
In the mirror.
So I was walking backwards and following her hand that was baiting or encouraging me to keep coming back and back and back. So I had made maybe 10 shuffle steps backward towards this person.
Still looking in the mirror.
Still looking in the mirror. And what happened? I slipped and fell. And I was now on the prep room floor. And I immediately looked up at the ceiling, couldn't see anything, but something started to press on my chest.
What?
Yes. And so as I was thinking about what it might have been that on my chest, and I thought for the first time in my life that I had fallen on the prep room floor, and no one wants to be on the prep room floor.
Yeah.
Okay, trust me. But I remembered laying on the prep room floor and something holding me to the floor. And with an exorbitant amount of pressure. And I thought for a minute that I thought I was having a heart attack.
Really?
Because the pressure was so tight on my chest that I just kept thinking, what is going on here? And I didn't even think about the individual that I had been following or trying to follow by walking backward.
Yeah.
As I was being pressed to the floor, something from the wall fell. And as it fell to the ground, it shattered.
Was it the mirror?
It was not the mirror, but it was an urn.
Oh.
So
was it full, or was it like a...
What?
Did it have someone in it?
There was someone in it.
Ooh.
And so I now, after hearing the crash, you all of a sudden start jerking and you make a fast reaction or turn.
Yeah.
And so I had done that, and I realized that as I did that, the pressure was no longer on my chest. So I immediately stood up and I turned on the light. And as I turned on the light, I walked back towards where the urn had fallen, or this urn a glass urn had fallen off this shelf and shattered on the ground. So I was sweeping up the urn, or the cremated remains, when there was a footprint again in the cremated remains that happened while I was was sweeping the cremated remains.
What?
Yes.
So
And
did
so
you see it? Like it wasn't there 1 second and you look and it's there?
you know how you're focused on something that you're sweeping to pick up?
Yeah.
You're just focused on it to make sure that you're getting everything in one pile before you put it in a dustpan. So I was mainly looking to make sure that I was dividing or at least separating the glass shards from the cremated remains when I saw that imprint. Now it wasn't the full foot, but you definitely knew that it was a foot because it was a definite heel and up to the balls of the foot itself. No toes, just the heel and the ball from the whole foot. And I stopped and I just kind of froze and I thought, okay, what do you want? Why are you here? You know, that's what I was thinking. I didn't say anything out loud and I tried not to let it startle me. But I will say that I was freaked out just a little bit because of that one impression. And I thought,
and the pressure on your chest.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Because now I know that person has at least some weight or mass that was creating some sort of a friction or some sort of a stop for me to continue to stand up. So I just went on ahead and continued pulling those glass shards, threw those away, and then slowly started to sweep up those cremated remains. And the last part that I swept up was that little last part with that footprint.
Right.
So I just didn't want to, I didn't know if that was something, if that was the person whose cremated remains I was sweeping up. I don't know if it was someone that was actually a part of maybe a family member, or if it was just someone who haphazardly happened to be in the prep room
right
when I was having to clean that up. I will say this right at the, and I'm going to take a break for just a minute, Coffiners. Mortuaries are kind of, they can be haunted.
Well, yeah.
I think they can be haunted in regards to...
If you've learned nothing from this podcast about the fact that mortuaries can be haunted, you haven't been listening.
Yeah. Let me start over. Try episode 1. No, I'm kidding. So in my mind, I'm just thinking of that, and I'm wondering, and in my mind, I'm thinking that if the previous owners to this mortuary before this company that I was working for bought it, knew that this place was haunted, but they knew that something was coming from the mirror. That's why they covered the mirror.
Oh, why wouldn't they just get rid of the mirror?
Well, because they had female employees and they're obviously going to want to be looking at themselves to make sure. And plus, any embalmer, when you wash it, well, getting aside from that, but you do want to make sure that you look decent when you're in the prep room. Yes, you do. And so this is all running through my head, and I finally got the last little bit of the cremated remains in the dustpan. And so I set it on the prep table, thinking that I'm just going to leave it there until I can find a bag or something that I can put these cremated remains in, because for some reason the cremated remains weren't in a bag. And usually that's odd. Yeah, usually that is what you would do, is you would put coffiners so that, you know, any cremated remains are usually placed in a plastic bag, and then the plastic bag itself is then placed inside the urn as an added protection to the cremated remains. So I found that difficult, or a little bit odd, that the cremated remains were not contained in another container or bag, but that it had broken and shattered and allowed those cremated remains to spill all over the floor. So I had them in a dustpan on the prep room table, waiting to see just looking around, turned on all the lights, just kind of looking around to see what I can find to put these cremated remains in. Mm-hmm. Now, this particular embalming room had a door. You could walk correctly straight through the embalming room, and there was a cooler inside the embalming room, but you could walk through the embalming room, and through that second door would go right into the chapel, which was kind of odd and good, because if you wheel
someone right in.
Yeah. But it's bad that if you're having a chapel service, that door might be opened. That's bad. Because if someone's looking for a restroom or something. Anyway, I was going through that second door looking for, they had like a utility closet that was there just off the side of the chapel that you could go into, and it had a bunch of extra stuff. And so all I was looking for was something to close that bag, or to get a bag that I could put the cremated remains in. So I walked into this utility room. I pulled on the light switch from the ceiling. I walked in about 3 feet, was looking at the shelves as far as what was available to place, to get these for these cremated remains, when I hear this.
Oh.
And then the door
Like
closed.
A breathe out, a sigh?
Yeah, either a breath in, a breath out. It doesn't matter. It was a breath. And so then the door closed, and I remember thinking, did you just close me in with you? Or did you just close me in here by myself and you're on the outside of the room? That's what.
Which would you have preferred?
I would have preferred them to be in there with me.
Why?
Because then I would have had control. But if they're on the outside of the door, I think I would have had control. If they're on the outside of the door.
You're thinking they have mass. So can they keep me in here?
What? They have what?
Mask.
Oh, they have mask.
Sort of,
yeah, I heard mask. But yeah, you're right. They have masks. And I thought to myself, so if he or she is on the outside of that door, if I'm going to press on the door, it's going to be hard for me to open the door, right? That's normal thinking. So I just tried to remain calm, and I saw a small little Ziploc bag. So I grabbed 3 or 4 of them, and I just pulled the light shut, or the light off, and then I walked to the door and opened the door. Nothing happened. No pressure, nothing. Nothing was happening.
You could walk through.
I could walk through, and I closed the door, and I remember breathing a sigh of relief, thinking, oh, good, that maybe they're gone. Maybe that's over. So I walked into the prep room, and you know what I found, Holly?
Footprints?
No, but the cremated remains were now again scattered on the floor.
What?
They were in the dustpan on the prep table, and now the dustpan is completely off the table on the floor.
And
now,
you didn't hear it fall?
No, because I was no. The room that I was in was probably 50 feet, maybe 60 feet from the prep room. So I know I did, and plus I was in a closed area, and I'm just thinking, so did it happen while I was in the room and the door was closed, or what happened? When did that second event happen with the dropping of the cremated remains?
Right.
So I just remembered looking at it, thinking, well, I've got the bags now, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do it again. Sweep it up. Now, mind you, this is now an hour easily after the embalming has taken place.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm
like,
thinking,
if only I didn't forget my phone.
That's right. I was thinking, if only I could have just gone home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm now picking up the cremated remains again, and this time I'm on my knees, and I'm just got, you know how you get a good low grip on the broom and you just kind of sweep it into the in. This time I feel pressure on my back.
Are you kidding me?
No. And
what
so
a jerk.
I think I said that, Ollie.
You're bullying me.
Oh,
you are.
My word. So anyway, now I feel pressure on my back. And as I start to try and stand up, it's almost as if someone is now cradling my back, like someone's wanting a piggyback ride.
What?
Yes. So now I'm feeling pressure on my hips, as though there are legs now being extended on my hips, and that little bit of a pressure on my shoulders and around my neck. And I just began starting to pour cremated remains into these separate baggies when I felt like I needed to shimmy.
Get off.
Yeah, right. Get off my back. That type of thing. Well, as I shimmied, I hear a thud.
What?
A thud on the prep table. So now,
were you right by the prep table?
So, okay, let me give you a visual. So as I come through that door that led out of the chapel, I walk into the prep room, and there's the prep table. So there's a space, and that's why I immediately saw the cremated remains on the floor, because I could see then the dustpan that was on the ground, and I just, under your breath say, oh no, again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I knew that was happened. But as I walked, you know how prep tables look. There's a little bit of a ridge on them.
Yeah.
So there's no way, and that's just sorry, coffiners, but it's a blood and water channel. And it just kind of keeps things on the table without spilling onto the floor. And so I was on the floor now picking up these cremated remains when that table was right in front of me. And I wasn't looking at it, but I was hunched over enough that I could crawl under the table if I needed to. So now
Okay.
you know the positioning of the table and me, and I'm feeling now the pressure on my back and on my shoulders. And I did just a little bit of a shimmy, and then I hear the thud on the table. Now the table didn't move, didn't rotate, didn't roll, didn't do nothing. But there was a definite thud on the table. So what I did is I took my hands and I started running my hands like you're touching every aspect of the table, trying to see if you can see or feel anything. So I'm
Okay.
tapping away like this. And as I'm moving like this, moving along, moving my hands either from the foot end of the table up to the top of the table or the head end of the table, I can feel a shimmy, like someone scurrying on the table. Now,
Ew.
see, so this is the thing that bugged me the most with regards to this whole event is that someone was trying to make their presence known to me and yet was not allowing me
Yeah,
to
they're running away from you.
experience their presence
Sure.
in the sense of mass or touch or whatever the case might be. So I didn't think anything else about it. I did not say one thing vocally to the individual that might have been in the room, but I did walk over to the refrigerator to check on them, because I had been there for a while now. I just wanted to make sure that this lady that I had just embalmed was back on the shelf or on the in the area in which I had actually placed her. And so I'm checking. Now, we have talked in the past, coffiners, about the positioning of a head so that it's positioned in a right way so that you can go ahead and place an individual in a casket for proper viewing. And you want them angled just a little bit, and I'll tell you again. So when an embalmer tilts the head just a little bit, they have the nose almost directly in line with the deceased right big toe. So that's the angle that you're looking for. So when I walked in and I looked at this lady that I had just finished embalming, she no longer had that small angle, but her head was turned completely to the side. And so I'm now looking at it thinking, why in the world did her head turn? Because there are certain things called head blocks.
Yeah.
And so the head block is supposed to keep the head in a position where you can go ahead and make sure that the head stays in that position until the embalming fluid has an opportunity to actually solidify a little bit of the tissue. So I was a little bit amazed, a little bit of alarmed that her head would tilt so much during just that small little episode of being able to find the cremated remains, get them picked up, and get everything situated and ordered. So I went into the office and I started writing a note to the personnel of the funeral home for the next day that the urn had fallen off the shelf and had broken and shattered, and all the cremated remains I had gone on ahead and scattered or placed in bags to so that they could go ahead and put it back in an urn that they would have to reorder, apparently, to make sure that the family still got their cremated remains back. So as I was writing this note on the desk, there was no fan, there was no open window, but there were papers that were now falling off the desk and dropping to the floor. So I'm now looking at an individual that is now not only, I think, accosted me in the prep room, but now is trying to frighten me by just simply having simple things drop from the desk onto the floor. And I didn't know exactly where I was going with this, and I still to this day don't know, and I hope I didn't overlook something, but I just hurried and finished writing the note, and then I just put it on the manager's desk, turned off the light, and recognized another light in the building on that I had turned off when I walked in, and went forward to that light switch and turned it off as well, went to the door, opened it, closed it, locked it, and then drove home. Now, as I called the manager the next day because I didn't hear anything back from him. And so I called him the next day because I didn't want him to think that I had purposefully broken something and that I was walking out of there without letting anyone know. I made the call and I said, hey, I just wanted you to know that I did that. There was an urn that was broken. I wanted him to know that if he did see the cremated remains in baggies and saw maybe some shards of the urn, that he didn't think that I
That's
had
why.
just done it and
Yeah.
forgotten about it. Yeah. So I called him and I started talking to him and I said, last night during the embalming, that urn, you should never probably have an urn like that in the prep room because it was a glass urn, fell to the floor. And he said, we don't keep urns in the prep room.
What?
That's what he told me. He just said, we don't keep urns in the prep room. And I said, well, one fell and crashed to the floor. He said, I saw your note and I'm still trying to make heads and tails of it. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you said you put cremated remains in plastic baggies and you put them on the prep table. There's nothing on
Nothing's
the prep
there.
table. There's nothing on the prep table. And then he said, did you take a picture? Do you know what the urn looked like that fell and broke? And I said, oh, man, if I had to think about it, I could probably think of something. He said, well, listen, don't worry about it because nothing's changed. We've all gone through this building trying to figure out what your note means. And we don't know what your note means. And I said, well, I picked up all the, and then he said this and he said, but why did you knock some papers onto the floor in the office? Why didn't you pick up those papers?
Oh,
and
my gosh.
I just casually said to him, I said, I think you've got a ghost in your building. And he said, a ghost. And, it's one of those, oh, yeah, okay, a ghost. Someone that would actually take your cremated remains, move them, yeah, make an urn fall. So I didn't think much more.
I don't understand how that you run into so many funeral directors and morticians who don't believe in ghosts.
I don't think they want to. I think that they know the energy is probably there, but they push it off to something else.
Yeah.
So I remembered probably 4 days later where I was having to go back to that facility and do another embalming. And I remembered thinking to myself, I wonder if the individual that I saw there previously is going to be there still. I just went into the prep room and I just casually said this, hi, I'm back. If you're here, happy to have you with me. And just something like that, something kind of non-conforming,
please don't accost me again.
Yeah, non-confronting. But I just wanted them to know that I was there and that if they were there, I would be more than willing to recognize their presence there. So they did not have the individual out on a table for me this time. So I went into the prep room,
So you were there again to embalm a different person? I think I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, I had to go back 3 days later. I had to go back and still embalm. And so when I walked into the prep room or to the cooler, the first thing I saw was the lady that I embalmed 3 days ago. And I thought to myself, why are you still here?
Yeah.
That was the feeling I got. Because when you're asked to embalm, they always make it sound like, we need to have the embalming done because the services are happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, so that's why I was kind of shocked when I walked in there to embalm, or at least pull this other individual out to embalm. And I just remembered looking at her thinking, oh man, you still look pretty good. That's what I was.
I did a great job.
As an embalmer, you just look at your work and you say, oh man, she looks good still. And so I pulled this individual out of the cooler and put him on the prep table and had started the embalming and had done the embalming. And when I put him back on a gurney and then wheeled him back into the cooler on the floor in the cooler where I would have had to have walked or where the gurney would have had to have laid was a bag of cremated remains.
You're kidding me.
A baggie of cremated remains that I had just packaged 3 days before. Where no
just
one in
one?
I could only find one. It was 3. But I could only find one. And I thought to myself, so you guys, and I know that it was that because I marked each baggie glass vase, broken glass vase or broken glass urn, whatever, 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. Yeah. And I was holding 1 of 3. And I looked at the floor, all the surrounding areas, could not see another bag. And I thought to myself, so you guys went through this entire building and couldn't find a bag of cremated remains. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and set this on the manager's desk and let
Yeah.
him
Was
know that,
anyone
hey,
there,
yeah, here it is.
or was it
No,
after
no, this
hours?
is still after hours. And so I went on ahead. I went forward and I grabbed the cremated remains and I started walking out of the prep room after closing the refrigerator door. And I walked to the office and was putting the cremated remains on his desk. And I thought, oh, I wonder if this lady that died 3 days ago, because I didn't pay attention to the positioning of her head.
Yeah.
I just remembered looking at her thinking, why are you still here? So I walked back in and I thought, well, why is she still here? And I looked to her head and it was still positioned pretty good, but under her neck was another bag of cremated remains. So now I'm curious as to what's happening with the cremated remains. And guess where the third set of cremated remains were that I found?
Under her feet.
Under her legs, Holly.
Under her legs.
Now I have all 3 bags of the cremated remains. And so now I'm thinking I have fodder. I have ammunition that I can now give to the manager about these 3 sets of cremated remains. And so I set all 3 on there, all 3 bags on his desk with, again, a little note saying these are the 3 bags of cremated remains that I had found while I was embalming this other individual. I need to know who they belong to. And he went the next day because of the note. Again, I called him. It was earlier in the morning. I didn't let time lapse this time. I wanted to make sure that he saw the note and the cremated remains and that he needed to be aware that there are cremated remains in his facility that need to be identified.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called him. I think they opened at 9. I made the call at 9:30 and he said, okay, Frank, yep, it's getting old. And I said, what do you mean, what's getting old? And he said, well, we saw your note again, but there
No
are
bags.
no cremated remains.
You should have taken a picture of him.
I should have. So that's my story in and out of a crazy little visit at a mortuary with embalming that I had to go do an embalming twice, and the experience that I had with regards to a spirit and then a misplaced cremated remains and then missing cremated remains. So I have no idea. I have no idea whose cremated remains those were, but apparently they weren't supposed to be in the prep room to begin with. So obviously my attention had to go to them somehow or for some reason. And to this day, I still don't know why, but that's what it was. That's the way it went. And so I have no idea. What are your thoughts on that, Holly? Anything that you want to bring up?
It's insane.
It is insane. And it's one of those experiences. And I don't know if it's scary, but it is definitely thought provoking. And I don't think anyone, I don't know if everyone could handle that type of experience, but it is kind of weird that there would be pressure on my chest and then on my back, like they wanted to be carried out of there. That was the impression I got.
Or they wanted to keep you there.
Yes. Or I don't know. I just really don't know, or I don't understand what was happening. But I asked him to specifically start taking a look at occurrences in the building, and that if in fact there was something happening, that he would go ahead and make those indications, or at least, so that he wouldn't think that I was off the wall. And so anyway, that's that story.
Jeez. Yeah, I honestly don't have a whole lot to say about that because it's just crazy.
I've always wondered about the orb.
I know. Why the orb?
With that individual over the entire face, and then when you could see it in the mirror, the orb was no longer there, but you could see the face and the individual. But it all started with the orb. And I think that's a lesson to learn from orbs. I don't know, that maybe individuals start as an orb and then can appear.
Maybe, or maybe
some
it's
sort
like
of a
if you pay
spiritual
attention
form.
to it.
Yeah, I have no idea. But
because you went and you sought it out.
Oh, I did. I tried to run my hand all the way around it. I tried to figure out where the light was coming from, and I've done that a number of times. I think we've had 2 other episodes where I've talked about trying to figure out where the light source was coming from. But this one was a little bit not unnervy, but almost made me feel like I was losing my mind because I knew what I was experiencing. And then everyone else around me was telling me that no, that didn't happen because we aren't experiencing it either.
Right.
And so it was just an odd occurrence. Anyway,
That's so
it.
strange.
Any other comments, Holly?
No, I think that's crazy and creepy. And I wonder why the cremated remains were tied to the woman that you embalmed. Like how, because obviously she must have had a vested interest in them.
Or, yeah, I don't know.
Or something.
Yeah, someone.
Just for it to be under her head and under her legs.
And then on the floor.
Right in front of her. Yeah.
On the floor. So something was happening to where, for some reason there was movement of the cremated remains. And I don't know. This was real early in my career. And I just kind of think, man, if I would have just maybe paid just a little bit more attention, that maybe I would know.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel bad whenever I think about this story that something may have been prompting me to do something and I overlooked it and I didn't. So
well,
bothers me a little.
They didn't prompt you in a really great way. To be honest here.
Thanks for bringing me back to life, to earth, Holly.
So
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They could have done a better job if they wanted you to do something. That's
right.
Yeah. I'm still just thinking about it. I wonder if like the pressure on your neck that you felt that one time is tied because you found the cremated remains under her neck.
Oh, good thought. I hadn't thought about that.
Was it under her hips or was it like under her knees, the second bag?
It was more up under her thighs.
Yeah, because that might have been like the other spot.
That's a good point.
And then
my being on the ground.
Yeah, on the ground.
Being pinned on but this all would have happened after those occurrences. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think but I think it had a plan. Yeah, I don't know if they knew what was going to happen, but
oh my gosh, I never really thought about that.
I don't know.
I don't either. Huh. I like the thought though.
Okay. I don't know what to do with it, but it's there. We'll take it.
Yeah, okay, good. Yes, we will. Yes.
All right.
All right, honey.
Well, Coffiners, that's all we got for you today. We'll talk at you next time.
Thanks, Coffiners. Let us know what you think. I'd be interested in knowing what your thoughts are. All right.
Bye.
Bye.